The new Tenet trailer has fans reeling and speculating, and one of the biggest questions they have right now is Tenet a sequel to Inception? I'm going to answer that and more right now. So let's cue the intro. My name is Siddu, and welcome to the screening room.
A new Tenet trailer came out on Fortnite of all things. No judgment though. I play Fortnite every now and then to kind of cleanse my palate after getting absolutely massacred on Call of Duty Warzone for like the 19th time.
Getting shot.
Taking fire! Here and you return to the front line. You lose, your fight is over. Sort them out or capture the objective. Looking a little worse for wear. You're heading back to base.
It's pretty toxic.
In terms of most anticipated releases this year, The Last of Us Part 2 is only 26 days away, and about 27 days after that will be at the July 17th release date of Tenet. That is, if the movie isn't delayed last minute. And then 156 days after that, we have Denis Villeneuve's Dune. And I actually made a video about that movie, and it's going to appear on my left and your right now. Isn't it amazing how editing works? So without further ado, is Tenet a sequel to Inception? Short answer is, we can't know until the movie comes out. But one of the great things about being a cinephile
is that we love to postulate, speculate, pontificate, theorize, hypothesize, and conjecturate all about movies. That last one isn't even a word. I'm going to lay it all out for you and make a few educated guesses as to the thread that ties these two movies together.
First thing, both of these movies are written and directed by Christopher Nolan, and as with many of his films, they have an air of the unexplained, the extra-normal, and the supernatural that come with. He finds a way to merge all of those ideas within a world that feels lived in, realistic, and relatable. I would say most of all of Nolan's films deal with the inexplicable. However, Inception and Tenet are the ones that do it on face value, very upfront with that. Inception takes place in a world very much like our own, where people can experience dreams together and have the ability to have largely lucid dreams. They use experimental military technology to conduct their high-stakes subconscious capers.
Now you can tell her you didn't accidentally cheat on her in a dream, but that you did it willingly.
Obviously, none of this is possible in real life, well, that I know of anyways. If you do know of a way, please let me know in the comments below, because I have a lot of questions, beginning with...
Here, now exactly how much pot did you smoke?
Now, Tenet does a similar thing to Inception. It messes with reality through a form of indirect, disjointed time travel known as inversion. In the trailer, we see John David Washington's character catch a bullet, literally catch a bullet, which may be the coolest and only way I'd like to see a black man catch a bullet.
No, you cannot joke about that.
Yeah, that's not funny, Arthur. That's not the kind of humor we do on this show.
If you're paying attention to the trailers, many of these scenes of inversion involve a person wearing a gas mask. It hasn't yet been explained how he actually caught the bullet in the room in the previous scene, unless the room actually had some sort of ventilation pumping in the inversion gas. In Inception, they used IVs to connect themselves into a dream intravenously, and Tenet shows characters using the special inversion gas to reverse the flow of time and travel backwards. If we look at this shot from the trailer, the water splashes unnaturally because the footage is actually reversed, indicating the inversion. Now, I'm assuming the boat isn't actually moving backwards in time, it's just showing the point of view of one of our characters who's using the inversion gas, showing the world from their perspective of the world moving backwards in real time. Here are some other examples of inversion happening in the trailers. Now, before we go deeper into the time travel and story of Tenet, it's important to know Christopher Nolan movies are no stranger to time manipulation. If we're going to start making comparisons, the most obvious one that I haven't heard anyone talk about is Nolan's second directorial feature, Memento. Stylistically, it's the closest you'll get to time reversal in a Nolan film. Dunkirk tells 3 different stories, all taking place over 3 different time spans, and fits them all into one cohesive movie. And Interstellar plays with time using relativity and time slippage when traveling near the speed of light. And lastly, Inception slows down the time as you progress deeper and deeper into different levels of dream states. Now, all of this shows, in my opinion, that almost all of cinema and filmmaking involves some sort of time travel. Unless we have a really long tracking shot like in Birdman or The Revenant, most movies jump from one point in time to another, and the only thing needed to do that is a cut. So let's get into the story of Tenet. Wikipedia description lists John David Washington's character simply as the protagonist, which is very similar to the 2011 Nicholas Winding Refn movie, it's a masterpiece, action crime thriller, Drive, starring Ryan Gosling, where his character is simply listed as the driver. Now, the synopsis reads, it's only one sentence, a secret agent is tasked with preventing World War III. Very open-ended, we can speculate the hell out of that. In the beginning of the first trailer, we hear Martin Donovan's voiceover describing the desirable qualities in a secret agent, presumably speaking to Washington.
You chose to die instead of giving up your colleagues. That test you passed? Not everybody does. Welcome to the afterlife.
Here we see Washington wearing a breathing tube, and we've seen that before, haven't we? My guess is whatever agency he's working for is feeding him this inversion gas, literally bringing him back from the dead. And I think this might happen at the beginning of the movie or towards the middle. They're trying to stop Kenneth Branagh's character from starting World War III or bringing about the end of the world. And based on the tagline at the end of the first trailer and on the teaser poster, it might be because time runs out. The end of the world might not be a nuclear holocaust, but rather the literal end of time itself. Heady stuff, I know. I also admire that the apocalypse here is something so simple, yet effectively scary, because we don't know what a world without time would be like. Because we can't know what a world without time would be like. It's hard to wrap your head around a world, an existence without time. I also like how it's blatantly against the somewhat contrived notion, the end of the world as a nuclear holocaust. The next thing I want to point out, this time comes from the second trailer. It's the scene of John David Washington and a SWAT team stopping a terrorist attack from happening, as it seems like many people have already been killed, and a team full of inversion gas soldiers, they all have gas masks on, infiltrates a concert hall, presumably rewinding time in order to stop the attack before it could happen. Another thing we can glean from examining the trailers is the connection between Elizabeth Debicki and Kenneth Branagh's characters. And that might even show why the protagonist is driving her around. He's possibly undercover as her chauffeur, and in a previous scene he's actually fighting bad guys in a kitchen trying to catch up to her, but it's too late. I'm assuming this scene happens later on in the story when his cover as a secret agent gets blown. Now that pretty much sums it up for the speculation surrounding this movie. Simply put, Tenet is probably not a sequel to Inception, at least in a very direct sense, like The Dark Knight's a sequel to Batman Begins. But I could very well see them as two movies set in the same universe. One, because I'm an optimist, and two, because I think it's kind of moronic to have two separate universes where you have similar military experimental technologies, one concerning time travel and one concerning dream states. I think they have to be connected in some way. And also, how awesome would it be if one of the scenes we see in the trailer or this movie actually turns out to be a dream, and they wake up hooked up intravenously to one of those dream machines. I want to end with a few definitions and word breakdowns, as well as some food for thought. It doesn't take a genius to see that Tenet, the film's title, is a palindrome, a word or phrase or sequence that reads the same backwards as it does forward. Tenet is also defined as a principle believed or doctrine generally held to be true. The one I'm thinking of in context is that time always flows one way. And this reminds me of Anne Hathaway's conversation, her monologue in Interstellar, where she says,
"Time is relative, okay? It can stretch and it can squeeze, but it can't run backwards. It just can't. The only thing that can move across dimensions like time is gravity."
And if any of you have seen Room 237, the documentary based on Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, you'll know that The Shining takes on a very different meaning when you play it from end to beginning. This makes me wonder if Nolan has crafted something extra special here. Maybe a movie that can be watched from beginning to end as well as from end to beginning, telling different stories both ways, offering a whole new meaning on the story altogether when you watch it backwards. Whether or not any of that is true, any of these speculations, we're just gonna have to wait until July 17th. And that is it, guys. Thanks for joining me in the screening room. The screening room is created by me to be a place that all of us can share things that we love about movies, comics, TV shows, video games, music, books, anything and everything under the sun. We'll talk about it here in the screening room. I'm your host, Siddu. Thanks for joining me in the screening room.